Hello everyone.
Oh,
Hi Karen, good to
hi.
see you.
Good to see you too.
And
Hello, everyone.
it's not too late to say Happy New Year, is it?
But not if we haven't seen them.
No, and we haven't. Hello, and it's lovely to see you all letting us know where you're dialing in from. We've got Ohio, we've got Scotland, we've got Italy, we've got Warsaw. Oh, I'm listening to a podcast about Poland at the moment, Lydia. I really fancy going there. We've got Paris, Cambridge, Chichester, all over the place. It is fantastic to have you with us wherever you're dialing in from. And just in case it's your first Disruptive HR live session and you've no idea who we are, my name is Lucy Adams, and my co-founder and colleague Karen Moran, we're here with you this afternoon. And it's going to be a session all around the new trends of HR. And it's going to be a kind of, we're just going to give you a kind of overview of 4 trends that are out there, because obviously there are tons of things going on in HR. But we're going to take you through 4 of them. And this is going to be recorded. So if you can't stay to the end and you want to catch up with it, you can find it on the club in the events section. With this copy of the slides as well. That will be going up shortly after we finish recording. We really wanted, we've got somebody from Hyderabad in India as well. Hello. Fantastic. And Munich as well. This wonderful array of countries that you're joining us from, and of course from the UK as well. I will let you know when I'm coming over, Lydia. So, question for you, first of all, start of the new year. What's the one thing you're going to do in HR or with HR this year? What's your New Year's HR resolution? We ran this session for our pro members yesterday, and there were all sorts of things coming in, from changing their approach to performance management to embedding AI for the first time and really kind of making that work. Things around changing the team and breaking down silos. There were focusing on leaders and kind of, so, even though we're going to talk to you about some, I suppose, more tech-based, more futuristic trends today, of course, there's still a lot of us are committed to actually just getting leaders and managers to have a conversation. For some, it's around they were going to change the way that they operate, so being much more agile in the way that they operate. For some, it was about looking at their own personal development and thinking about how they influence more effectively. So you're starting to now come with your the things that you're doing. So Val, you're looking at a skill-based job architecture. Fantastic. Claire looking at opportunities to better integrate AI. Debbie's talking about how systems are supporting us and a review of processes. Joe's looking at social attraction and implementation of AI tools within recruitment. Valentina's looking at helping people navigate change. Oh God, I know there's just so much of that kind of, how do we help them? All sorts of things coming through. I know, Jeanette, it is hard to narrow it down to one thing, but what would be the one thing you're going to focus on this year? So let's take you through what we're going to be covering in this session.
Yes. So, as Lucy said, we've got so much to do, but we thought we'd just try and focus on 4 things today. So we're going to have a look at, obviously, AI, and more around the fact that it's not about the kind of the admin anymore, but the more strategic approaches that we can take with AI. We're going to have a little look at human-centric interactions, which sounds very HR-y, doesn't it? That will all become clear in a bit. Then we're going to have a look more at the kind of the sort of recruitment L&D world in tech-driven talent marketplaces and what's happening in that space in terms of career development and much more internal movement. And then we're going to finish up with us as a HR team, how we can work in a more agile way. So they're the 4 areas that we're going to touch on today.
And we should have said at the start, my bad, if you've got any questions or observations or comments, please do put them into the chat and we'll try and answer them as we go through. So do let us know if you've got any thoughts or questions. Right, let's kick off with AI going mainstream. And of course, it's been a real hot topic for years, hasn't it? But it was always kind of typically based around the taking over repetitive tasks or removing some of the transactional activities, things like scheduling interviews or using chatbots to help employees find policies or advice. But what we're seeing now is that AI is being used in much more creative ways, much more strategic ways. And if we think about the kind of the creativity piece, I mean, Coca-Cola, for example, have utilized AI to generate marketing copy, visuals for campaigns. They get AI to suggest taglines. They help them optimize the visuals for engagement, and they even test out ad performance before they go live. And that kind of AI-driven creativity could easily be used to help us with internal communications, recruitment, or branding for initiatives. And I think that's what we're seeing, Karen, isn't it? Is that that's the direction that it's going in, much more around the creative side of it, innovative, and also, as it says there, kind of enabling us for the first time to really be able to catch and fix issues before they become insurmountable. So we're going to give you some examples of what that looks like in practice.
Yeah, so let's start with Unilever. So they're a great example of really looking at how they can use AI in the HR team. Now, they've been using it in recruitment marketing. So what they're doing is they're looking at, help me find kind of the best messaging that's going to work for attracting these types of candidates. And so just even thinking about how you can use it for writing job specs, writing job ads, thinking about your kind of desired personas of who you're actually looking for if you're really struggling to recruit hard to fill roles. So it really turning them into much more marketing experts. Of course, if you follow Lucy and I, we talk a lot about HR having to be marketing experts. And now finally, we've got the AI support that means that that's a reality. Another great example is from this organization called Dick's. So they're a sporting goods company. They've got 50,000 employees. And what they wanted was they wanted a way of helping their people grow in their careers. And so what they did was they interviewed their highest performing leaders and wanted to understand, what is it that makes you so successful as a leader? And then they used AI to analyze these results. And they got it to match with all the kind of public profiles that were out there for leaders. And this gave them the opportunity to pull together skills-based role profiles for maybe a store manager or a district manager. Now, the great thing about having these kind of profiles was employees within Dick's could take an assessment to see how their skills matched up. And of course, by doing that, they were able to see, right, what is it that I'm going to need to do or develop in order to one day maybe be a store manager or a district manager. So clever use of AI from Dick's. Now, this next example is from IBM. So IBM, a very early adopter of AI, of course. The HR team are using it pretty much for everything. And they have completely transformed their sort of traditional HR processes. So as an example, they're using it to match candidates to roles because they can analyze the kind of skills and preferences from people's CVs or resumes. They're using it to write job ads. They're using it to manage their social campaign media. They're using it for managers. So, for example, managers may get a little prompt, a little note to say, you've got someone in your team that may be thinking about leaving. Now, they don't obviously know whether they're going to leave, but they're using data to say this person maybe has been in role for too long. This person's applied for several other jobs and not got them, whatever it might be. So then it gives them a little nudge to say, maybe you should be having a bit of a conversation with them, a stay conversation to keep them engaged. It also analyzes sort of sentiment analysis. So they use it, they look at their internal social media, they look at their survey data, and it tells them in real time what's going wrong, what's going well, where they might need to kind of address their kind of actions in terms of keeping people engaged. And it even does things like help managers make fair decisions about pay. So it makes that, if they want to make a pay change to one of their team, it will pop up with, this is what the market rate is for this role. This is the equity in terms of what the rest of your team are earning, so that they can make kind of really good decisions about pay. And then finally, they're using it for career development. So it obviously AI gives them career advice, development suggestions, so that the employees can kind of manage and own their careers much more. So they're using it for pretty much everything at IBM.
And I know you might be thinking kind of, oh God, but that's IBM, and they've got all the tech and they've got all the money, and but actually there are lots of things that we can be doing with the freebies that are out there. So Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, and do let us know if there are any others that you're using that you found useful. Somebody on the session yesterday was talking about Gamma. So, put it into the chat, which are the available AI that you're using. And you can see in front of you, here's just some suggestions about some prompts to try if you were thinking about, let's try it out and see how AI can help me be more creative, to take some of the heavy lifting off me in terms of the innovation that we want to try. So you've got there, analyze these verbatim comments and summarize the recurring themes. Saves you so much time, when you're doing your annual engagement surveys or your pulse surveys, just using AI to do that analysis for you. Review this job description, suggest improvements on the basis of making it less biased or more inclusive. Create a video script for me, for onboarding. Here's our company. Talk about the company's mission and culture and just do me a 2-minute script. Or maybe you could use it to even think about if you're wanting to change your performance management, write me a 1-minute pitch on our new approach focused on feedback and removing annual reviews and so on. Design an activity that helps managers adopting continuous feedback, a gamified activity, or creating a 5-minute challenge for assessing the skills of a product manager. So I think the key thing here is that if you are new to AI, and Karen's been fantastic for Disruptive HR here because she loves anything like this, don't you? So it's actually about, having fun with it and just trying out these different prompts. So let's move us on now to the second of our key trends, and that is, as Karen said, that kind of slightly HR language of human-centric interactions, the second key trend. What we're basically saying here is that it's about tailoring the employee experience. It's looking at all of those areas, from benefits to career paths to performance management, and instead of thinking about the process, thinking about what do we want for the experience to be? How do we want people to feel? And it's about personalization of that experience. It's not about one size fits all processes. It's starting with the human beings that work for us and designing our approaches around that. Because people want to feel that their careers, their benefits, etc., are designed around them, that they're relevant for them, that they're not just something that's off the shelf. So I think, Karen, you've got some examples.
I've got 4 great examples for you. So let's start with PwC. So they've introduced what they call My Plus program. And the idea of this is that it lets employees design their own work experience. So it could be from booking extra time off. It could be, I need help with my student loan. It could be about how and where I work. Am I going to be remote? Am I going to be hybrid? Do I prefer to be in the office? And my career, how can I design my career along with my personal goals? So My Plus program from PwC. Now, a lovely example here from a company called Empower. They're a digital strategy agency, and they introduced what they call the manual of me. So we're seeing again a lot more organizations trying to think about these kind of user manuals, if you like, or personal profiles. And they're really helpful in terms of helping people understand each other and understand each other's differences. And so the manual of me, what they did was they asked everyone to create their own manual of me about their working style, their motivations, their communication preferences, their stresses, their hobby, whatever they want to say. They can be as open as they like. And they gave them a template, but said, if you don't want to use this template and you want to do it in another way, that's absolutely fine. And then they had sort of short team sessions where everybody shared their manual of me. So, of course, sort of sparking conversations about, oh, I didn't know that about you. And I'll remember that you don't like getting emails at night, or whatever it is. And then they pulled it all together and came up with a manual of we. So each team realized that they had a lot of similarities as well as differences. So they kind of said, how can we use the manual of we to make sure that we're kind of working in the right way as a team that suits us all?
I think that's really good, because I think, often when I'm speaking to HR directors, they worry that personalization is going to lead to too much complexity, because you're going to have so many individual needs and so many different options that are required. But of course, that's not really the case. I mean, we talk about using persona, don't we, to help with understanding how you can cluster people to provide a limited range of options, so you're not importing too much complexity and cost. But I think this idea of starting with the individuals and then clustering them up like that is really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So next we're going to look at Spotify. So they've rolled out what they call the Bounce platform. And of course, they're very good at kind of looking at their HR initiatives and matching them to their product. So it works a bit like their music recommendations, but it's for their people. So it personalizes and tailors information that suits each person and their role. So it could be from them having a very customized onboarding plan to comms that are relevant to them, that actually matter to them. How many times do we know about people just having kind of anything from internal comms on auto delete because it's not relevant? It makes sure that it's relevant to them. And then the final example here is from a company called H&H Group, and they're using Culture Amp. I'm sure many of you using something, either Culture Amp or something like it, for your engagement surveys. But what they did was they gave direct access to managers. So managers were responsible for sending their own surveys and seeing the results straight away. Now, again, Lucy and I, from our experiences, we used to kind of hold on to survey data for months before we let anybody actually see it. And then it would be another kind of 6 months going through that kind of action plan. I remember sitting in rooms with managers kind of going, right, what's your action plan? What are you going to do?
And then it's time to start the survey again, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it was almost like they thought they were doing us in HR a favor for writing an action plan. Whereas what this does with H&H is that the managers are getting it straight away. And of course, what they've said is it raises the manager's interest in actually doing something about it. They've got much more kind of sort of, stake in saying, right, what am I going to do? I can see my results this week. Things are not looking good on kind of recognition. What am I going to do about it so I can kind of get engagement back up? So great example there about a much more human style interaction.
And it also enables them to create their own pulse surveys, doesn't it? So it's not just the surveys being done to them, but they can customize it. They can do it in ways that sort of pick up on the points that are relevant to them. I think it's definitely the way forward, putting it in the hands of managers. As you say, they're going to be much more interested, aren't they, in kind of finding out the results and so on. Now, we thought we'd just pause here and just share a little bit about the club. I know that you are all basic members, but we thought it might be useful if we could just share with you a little bit about the pro membership that you can get. And as you see there, we're offering a 10% discount up until the end of January. So just a bit of information there about the kind of things that you can get. But I'm just going to give you, I'm going to share with you, if this works, and just show you behind the scene, if you like, of the pro membership. So the same layout that you're used to as basic members, but obviously what you get within the pro membership, you get so many more live events. So we've got obviously performance management coming up next week, embedding new skills. One new thing that we're running, which is answering questions from club members. Then into February, convincing the HR team, top 5 AI solutions, D&I strategies, and so on. So there's a weekly training session, and all of the past sessions are available for you to view as well. So all of the recordings, so tons and tons of training for you and the team there. We've got the community chat, which is where pro members ask us and other members the questions, so the other thousands of members. So people asking about unlimited leave, progressive KPIs, and so on. There's a structured program. I won't go into that because we haven't got time, but also just a tons of resources. So from the 5-minute Monday videos that I put out every week, looking at different issues, through to all of the wealth of resources that you can get on all of the kind of the key topics. So just thought we'd share with you a little bit about what the club looks like. And now I'm going to go back to the main presentation. There we go. So you can see all the benefits that you get there as pro members. So do let us know if you're interested in following up on that. Okay, so let's go into the third trend, which is another tech one, but is all around kind of talent mobility. So a talent marketplace is kind of like your internal job board, but much smarter and much more flexible. It's a tech platform that helps employees explore new opportunities, but not just jobs. It could be projects or little gigs that you've got going on. You know, it doesn't always have to be a vacancy. It could be some helping out with a project for a couple of weeks. So it's about really enabling people to move around and to develop the skills that they need. Employees can see what's available, match their skills and interests to opportunities. And the key thing here is that they take ownership of their own growth. So it's not relying on time poor managers. So this is a definite trend that we're seeing, and with some great results.
Yeah, so we thought we're going to share a couple of examples, and we could go on forever on this, but just a couple of examples of 2 organizations that are using these talent marketplaces. So the first one is NetApp. Now they're using some software powered by Fuel 50. I don't know if any of you are using it, but we hear a lot of good things about it. And really, they've brought it in because it's a kind of, for them, a broader effort about future-proofing their workforce, promoting skills as the new currency is their kind of tagline. And what they wanted to do was they wanted employees to think more of their career growth as climbing a rock wall, you know, moving in different directions, sometimes up, sometimes sideways, sometimes down, rather than it always just being kind of, you know, the upward career ladder that we were familiar with. Now, what it does is it gives people a little personalized dashboard so they can have a look at their own skills, their role, their growth opportunities. It talks about lateral moves, skill building projects. They get to look at their skills gaps, you know, what is it that they might need in order to develop in the future, and what resources are available for them to be able to do that. They can get matched up with sort of internal projects, or maybe getting a mentor so that they can get development that's not that traditional training course. And of course, what's been helpful is because employees are so much more equipped, the managers are having much better conversations with them. You know, they've got a starting point. You know, we know sometimes managers really struggle to sort of say, I don't know how to have a career conversation. They don't need to be the experts. They just need to be there for the employee to talk about their kind of their needs in the future. So that's NetApp. And then the next example is from a company called Kuehne and Nagel.
Kuehne and Nagel.
And I knew I wouldn't be able to, I didn't want to say it yesterday. My dyslexic brain. Okay, so what they've done is they've introduced a system called Career Explorers. So it's from a platform called Phenom. And their objectives was they wanted more internal career moves. Now, how often do we hear people say that it's actually sometimes easier to leave the organization and apply for a new job than it is to move internally? And they wanted to kind of stop that. They also wanted employees to take more ownership for managing their career growth and, of course, reduce the time it took them to fill positions. So the features of this platform means that people get personalized job and learning recommendations. They can manage their own records. Again, God, back in the day when employees used to come to me and say, can you print off my training record? And so they're able to kind of manage that themselves. But another great thing is that the recruiters internally have become much more internal headhunters. So they're in a position where they can see from the people's requests and profiles, they can actually proactively identify and approach internal candidates to be able to think about them moving into other roles. So much more visible, if you like, in terms of internal movement. Now, as you can see, they've got some great results already, 20% reduction in time to fill, double the conversion rate.
Amazing, isn't it, that stat?
Which is fantastic. And so far, 74% employee satisfaction. Because I think, we all want to work somewhere where we feel the organization cares about us and our career and our futures. So 2 examples there.
Now, obviously, we don't recommend tech solutions because that wouldn't be appropriate. But the ones on the left here are all tech solutions to tech-driven marketplaces that we've heard really good things about from clients and other people that we know. So you might want to check those out. And again, if anybody's working with a tech-driven marketplace that they are finding brilliant, do let us know in the chat. But on the right-hand side, because not all of us have got the budget, we've just suggested some sort of more homespun DIY approaches, lower cost, from using things like Slack and Teams, using the free options like ChatGPT, using free options such as Google Forms or SurveyMonkey, using Google Sheets or Google Docs as that kind of ability to share real-time information and add to it. And then, of course, using Coursera or LinkedIn as to support with growth paths. So there are some free and cheaper options out there. You don't always have to go for the flashy tech system, but do let us know if there's any others that we should be adding to the list. Let's go on to the final HR trend. And I think it's one of my favorite trends for 2025. And in Disruptive HR, we've been doing a lot around Agile HR teams for quite a while now. And again, on the club, you can find with the pro resources, lots of support to help you move quicker, have better impact, be much more relevant, much more cost effective by adopting more of a product mindset. But we're seeing here as a key trend, Agile really taking off in HR. And I think that's in a couple of areas. It's around the Agile product design techniques. So things like, minimum viable product, experimentation and piloting, going with early adopters, sprint planning. So we're definitely seeing HR teams having much more impact and building their credibility by using these techniques. And then the second area of Agile is the way that the HR teams are being structured. We're seeing a removal of these very narrow silos within the centers of expertise, and instead merging around areas where it makes a huge amount more sense. So, for example, we've just been talking about internal talent versus external talent. We're seeing the coming together of hiring teams with internal talent management teams and combining one function. You kind of think, Karen and I, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do it when we were HR directors? It just makes total sense. So moving faster, less siloed, more collaboration, and really helping to build our impact with these more agile techniques. And as I say, we're going to be going into these with pro members over the coming year in a lot more detail. but we thought we'd just share a couple of examples with you right now.
Yeah, so we'll start with ING, and they operate in an agile way across the whole organization, but including the HR team. So the HR team work in these kind of cross-functional squads, and they collaborate as a HR team from on the end-to-end employee experience, which of course, as Lucy said, makes so much sense, rather than our little silos of you do learning and development, you do recruitment. They're kind of working closely together. So you can still have experts in those teams, but they are working in projects, if you like, to think about the employee experience much more joined up. So ING operating in a kind of cross-functional squad way as a team. Now, of course, some of you on this call may not have the opportunity to change your HR structure, but maybe you could just think about one process that you could change and use agile principles to do it. So let's take Zapier as an example. They just said, right, we want to look at the candidate experience. And so what they did was they pulled together a team, and it involved, maybe a business partner, the recruitment team, a hiring manager, a new starter, and they kind of together decided, right, how can we improve the candidate experience? How do we want people to feel at every stage, from seeing the job advert to kind of getting the job or not getting the job? And they used kind of, the typical Kanban boards. They did kind of sprints, so worked in kind of, 2-3 weeks to kind of get things done. And the result of that project resulted in 75% reduction in time to hire. And obviously they talked again about their increased quality of hires too. So if you can't go big bang with the whole HR structure, maybe there's one project that you could look at, or one process to say, could we do this in a much more agile way?
So that brings us to the end of our 4 key trends. As we've got AI going mainstream, we've got much more kind of human-centric interaction, so less about the process and much more around how do we want people to feel, what's the experience we want them to have. We've got the tech-driven marketplaces, and we've got agile HR. So I hope you've enjoyed that kind of quick overview of what the key trends are from our perspective. Of course, as we said at the start, there are tons of things that you've all got on your plate, and whatever you're up to in 2025, I hope that you have a fantastic year. We'll be back in the spring with another free basic webinar, but maybe we might see you as a pro member. And I should have mentioned that if you were interested in becoming a pro, but you're not entirely sure, you can, of course, join by pay monthly as well. There's the training we've got coming up over the next few weeks for pro members. And if you've enjoyed this session, we'd be really grateful if you wouldn't mind leaving us a Google review. We'd be very, very grateful. I know it's cheeky to ask, but we're very grateful if you wouldn't mind doing that. So that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed it, and maybe we'll see you on the club in the coming weeks or months. Bye for now.
Bye.